Let's start off with the Mets, where yesterday acting GM Zack Scott told the media, quote, "We're not done," unquote, in regards to free agency. And he also said, quote, "We want to do some other things," unquote. In recent days, the Mets have been linked to Matt Chapman, Justin Turner, and Chris Bryant. Seems to be making third base a priority. Of course, also this morning, we found out that reliever Seth Lugo has some loose bodies in his pitching elbow, and he's going to have surgery. He's going to miss the start of the season. So with the Mets being aggressive, they apparently have some needs to get to. Chris, Kayla, what do you think the Mets should do next?
Well, I'll start on Lugo. I think it's a huge loss. I think it's a huge hit for them. I mean, this is a guy who gave you some really good innings and just versatile, right? Could even stretch him out to start. Someone who's been consistently there. So I think it's a huge loss. And for all intents and purposes, seems like he'll be out until May or later, probably the summer. So that's a big loss. And the Mets could use help in the starting rotation too. I think it's a little interesting that we've heard about 3 third basemen now. You mentioned them, and Turner would be really interesting. He's a great player. So is Chapman and Bryant. You know, even though Bryant had a terrible year, the challenge there is the money, right? Because they don't want to hit that luxury tax. They want to extend Lindor. They want to extend Conforto. So I'm not sure how the money's working out here. But to me, pitching would be more of a priority than somebody like that, although certainly wouldn't complain if they picked up Justin Turner or Chapman or Bryant.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you bring up the luxury tax, though, because I think that when the Mets were interested in Trevor Bauer, it kind of showed that they don't really care that much about the luxury tax,
Right.
that they are willing to go over that. So I'm not sure necessarily that money for them is like quite a big concern at this moment. Like, I think that they're willing to take the luxury tax hit. I do think it's interesting, though, like you said, that they are only going for infield right now. I guess they're really trying to work on their hitting power instead of their pitching. But I don't know. I think that now that Seth Lugo has, he will be out. I think they said like 6 weeks, maybe.
It'll be 6 weeks till he starts like a throwing program, and it's going to probably be another 6 weeks for him to be back to full action. So
Right.
Okay,
we're looking at a while.
It's going to be a while.
So they need probably someone to take his spot. I mean, they did get Trevor May and Aaron Loop, so they have definitely fortified the bullpen a little bit, but it would probably be better to have one more.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that first off, definitely, I think before we obviously heard the Lugo news, I think the priorities for the Mets. First off, I was a little surprised that they made third base such a priority. I welcome it. I think it's a good idea. I think it was Anthony DeComo or Steve Gelbs. I don't remember who, but they tweeted something along the lines of, how did we go from being, wow, J.D. Davis is one of the best hitters on the Mets and can play a little bit of third base, to we have to get rid of him. You know, I think that J.D. Davis, I know he didn't have a great 2020, but, you know, and this goes for saying Bauer being great or saying someone was bad last year. It was 60 games. I mean, that's barely a third of the season. A little over, excuse me, regular season. So I really think we have to kind of step back and not overly evaluate players based on a 60-game season. So, I mean, that being said, I would like the Mets to go after a third baseman. I think Matt Chapman would be really interesting. The question is with the A's, he's under control for a few years. You know, you're going to have to go up a decent amount. And I know the Mets were trying to replenish the farm system. With Chris Bryant, I'm very intrigued by that. You know, the question is, I know he's making a decent amount of money this year. Maybe they can do some kind of salary exchange, which like, Familia. You know, we'll take him off your hands. We'll give you Familia, something like that. But now with Lugo out, you know, maybe you need Familia. I'm not a Familia guy, but and then in terms of a reliever,
I wouldn't want to subtract from the bullpen, though.
Yeah, in terms of, and then just in terms of a reliever, the just, you know, Trevor Rosenthal is still out there. You know, maybe bring back Justin Wilson, a starter. I know they were talking to Arrieta. I think Paxton.
He's back with the Cubs.
I know he is.
Yeah.
But so he's off the table. But you know, Paxton, is he someone that they would consider signing? I know they've been linked to him, so I don't know. A lot of options out there.
I mean, I don't mind the idea of getting another bat, getting another piece, and just creating a very potent lineup and becoming almost an offensive first team. And the Mets have almost moved in that direction. But it would make more sense to go for an outfield bat, right? I mean, somebody who could play center field. I think Jackie Bradley Jr. was a really good idea. It just doesn't seem like they're looking for outfielders. Seems like they're looking for someone who can give them some more pop, even though they already have a lot. And I don't really know how Dominic Smith plays into this, because he's a guy who I don't really want to see in left field. It doesn't play a good left field. So I worry about that. The DH would have helped a lot if they could have a DH.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not as adverse. I'm not saying, look, Dom Smith is not exactly, I don't know. He's not, Andrew Jones or, Hunter Pence out there or someone. I mean, I'm trying to think of a good
Hunter
outfielder,
Pence.
but
there's not a lot of stars in the corner outfield.
There's I'm not as adverse to it. Look, Dom Smith has to play. That's so I look in between him. Conforto obviously is going to be every day. The thing was, you're right, center field. But my thing is, they obviously still have Nimmo. They went out and got Almora to play some center field. And the question is, at this point, if you want, I like if they hadn't signed Almora, I would have said Jackie Bradley Jr. would have been the guy. The problem is that now what, 3 center fielders, and even Jackie Bradley Jr. He's a great defender. He can't really hit that much. I know he's okay. I think that the Mets, I would target, if I were the Mets, Paxton, as just because he's pitched in New York. I know he has injury issues, but when he was healthy with the Yankees, he was a good pitcher, especially in the playoffs. And, I think that I like the rotation, but the simple fact of the matter is you have DeGrom, obviously he's your ace. You're bringing back Stroman. Syndergaard's not going to be back until, probably May as well. You got Cookie Carrasco, who I like, but we don't know yet how he's going to do here in New York.
Lucchesi from Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah. David Peterson coming back.
Peterson I like a lot. Obviously, Jacob DeGrom.
Right.
Just, I don't know. This team needs something more pitching wise. I feel like, and I don't know if Paxton brings it. That's why it was Bauer to me. I can't get over Bauer because I really thought he was going to be a Met. I really did.
Well, you're selling his merch that he was going to be a Met. So
I had to be honest. I mean, look, I've kind of gone back and forth. I'm honestly happy we didn't get Bauer, just because I don't think, like I said, going back to my point about the 60 games, I don't think that
be happy.
I don't think the headache warrants the player. He's been a Dodger for a week, and he's already tweeting out saying, Dodger fans, leave me alone in my hotel. I don't want to talk to you. I mean, just like this guy would have been a mess in the New York media market. I think regardless, I think as pitching wise, I think it would, and I'm sorry, Trevor Bauer, who has almost a career 4 ERA, is not worth $40 million a year. If they gotten him, would I have been like, oh my God, this is awful? Probably not, but I'm not losing sleep over it.
I think that you probably would have been like, this is a great move. What a wonderful move. Like, I love it having Trevor Bauer here. But now that he's gone, you're like, it was we're really saved by that.
I mean, come on, Kayla. I mean, I definitely was on the fence about it. So either way, I probably would have come up with something. But.
Don't get me wrong. He would have been a headache, but he's a National League Cy Young winner, and that you don't turn down if you get the chance to do it. And he's probably overpriced, no doubt, but the short-term contract is great. Potentially even if he opts out after a year, the idea that you're not locked into him on the long term, if you're concerned about the 4 ERA and that returning, but I think he's got another handful of very good seasons in him. And I would have loved to see him in a Met uniform. The one knock on him for me was that if he came in, he would have instantly become the spotlight of that starting rotation, when that spotlight deserves to be squarely on Jacob DeGrom. And he's the best pitcher in all of baseball. And you're going to get this guy who's going to take that away. DeGrom is just quietly doing his job, being the best at his job, the whole sport now for years. And this guy has got he doesn't say anything. He is just, you couldn't ask for a better franchise player than Jacob DeGrom, because he just does his job. And Trevor Bauer does bring along a whole thing. And I'd be willing to take it if it meant I could get an NL Cy Young winner to pair up with Jake DeGrom.
Mm-hmm.
But DeGrom is still the guy no matter what. And that's maybe the one silver lining here, is that he is absolutely the heart and soul of this rotation. He better get some wins this year.
Yeah, I mean, with the Cy Young, well, first off, I mean, obviously he's just coming off of Cy Young, but as we know, just because you win the Cy Young one time doesn't mean you're going to be a great pitcher for years to come. I mean, Rick Porcello, R.A. Dickey. I mean, obviously the Cy Young goes to great pitchers, and you bring the counterpoint of all the great ones that have won it, but I don't know. But if I were the Mets, I would have gone after George Springer, but look, it's all hearsay now. We can't change the past.